You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host, Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts, Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
You are listening to The Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 8th show. You can also listen to our podcast or Facebook premiere show. I'm your co-host, Keelan Harvey. Rolling solo today. We're here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing our show at a different time of day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we are here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests we have on the show today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And now in studio, Cherry O'Neill of Active Transformations, LLC. Active Transformations offers personal coaching in pursuit of purpose, passion, and potential right here on 1150 AM KKNW. So let's start out this, Cherry. Give us a little bit of history on what roles you played in your life other than a professional coach.
Well, you mentioned earlier that I am the daughter of an entertainer who was very popular in his day. He's still kind of a legend. He was very popular around the time of Elvis, a little bit before Elvis Presley. They kind of had a rivalry. My dad was the one that was parentally approved. The parents liked my dad. They weren't so crazy about Elvis. They thought he was dangerous and rebellious. I used to describe to my kids, I said, it's kind of like today, Justin Timberlake and Eminem. It's like Justin Timberlake was like my dad and Eminem was like Elvis Presley. So if you can imagine that comparison. So I grew up with a dad who was in entertainment, and we started performing with him when I was about 13 years old. It was a way to keep four daughters in my dad's view, to travel with him and perform with him on stage. And we absolutely loved it. My mom had taught us how to sing close-knit harmonies because she had quite an ear for music growing up in a musical family herself. And so we performed and sang together for 8 or 10 years. We recorded some albums. One was nominated for a Grammy in the gospel category. And then, of course, my sister took off and had her solo career. And I ended up getting married. But in the process of working through the singing and performing, I also developed an eating disorder that was very serious. But it was at a time when people didn't know what anorexia and bulimia were. So I was fighting kind of an unknown enemy and not even realizing that there was anything particularly wrong with me trying to take control of my body and be thin and exercise and all of that stuff, because I grew up in the time of Twiggy and Cher, and thin was in, and thinner was better and thinnest was best. And that was kind of what I set out to try to achieve in my life. But the insidious thing about an eating disorder is that you set out to control your own body and your own life, and it turns around and ends up kind of taking control of you. It becomes a compulsive, addictive type of behavior. So I struggled with that during the early years of, during the performing with my family. And then when I got married for a few years after that, until I sought professional help. That moved us up from California up to Washington State, and didn't think I'd ever be able to have kids, but I am a person of faith and really relied on that in my recovery, and ended up not just having one miracle child, but ended up having 5. So wow. To me, that was a testament to the fact that my body had been healed from the disorder that I had struggled with. And in my own struggles with facing an eating disorder and trying to recover from that, I gained a lot of spiritual and psychological muscles that a lot of people don't get a chance to develop when they don't have to work through those kinds of things. And it taught me a lot of empathy and compassion for other people when they go through difficult times. I was able to use that with my own kids as they were growing up. I got involved in their schools. I was a volunteer at PTSA at 3 different schools at one time because my kids were spread out over 11 years. So at one point I had 5 kids in 4 different schools. So wow. That was a challenge.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I got involved in the special needs committee, and I developed a a program for the junior high level called Data Week, which stood for Drug, Alcohol, and Tobacco Awareness Week, because I had seen that some of my kids were being tempted and falling into some of the traps in that regard, and started a parent networking group, put together a big event that involved two neighboring school districts to bring in a speaker and have a weekend of events for this speaker and her book tour. I just found ways to turn my experiences that were challenging into ways that I might be able to help other people. And when my youngest daughter was involved in the boarding school that we had chosen to send her to, and the opportunity to learn about coaching came up, I thought, this is a great thing to be able to help people. I can learn some skills that I might be able to employ in doing the work that I do with youth groups at church and with young people in the junior high and high school. And it was a great opportunity, not only to learn those things, but to realize that I could actually move towards starting my own business. And so I, went from being a singer and performer to being a mother to being a kind of a professional volunteer to starting my own business. And I've been doing this now for 10 years. Absolutely love it. I love helping people. And one of the things that I try to do when I'm working with people is help connect them with things that they're passionate about and to kind of step outside of the box and take risks. So I decided I needed to walk my talk. And I had always been fascinated with acting and storytelling. And so in recent years, I started doing a little bit of acting and have worked with an agency and have done a few commercials and a couple of small short independent films, and taken a lot of acting classes and improv scenarios, and I'm loving that too. So I have the part of me that's connecting with the passion that I have on the side, but also the business of helping other people with coaching.
That is so cool. I can imagine growing up in that life, it's got to be a bit of a pressure cooker. There's a lot of pressures on you, and I imagine it escalates everything. When I was a kid, my mom got me into modeling, and I did not like it, even like a taste of it. I was a soccer player, and that's all there was to it. Like, stand here, do this, pose like this, and you got people doting all over you. I didn't like it at all. So I took a left, but I can imagine that could get to you at some point. So is coaching currently, is this your full-time job now?
I would say I always designed it to be kind of a part-time thing, because I do have a life. I have 3 grandchildren with another one on the way. And so I want to be available to help out with when my kids need a little help with babysitting or whatever. And I also want to have time for my passions. So it's always been designed to be kind of a part-time or half-time job. But I put full-time energy into it. That's for sure. I take it very seriously.
Well, having a baby on last Saturday, the 24th, I could tell you we could need all the help we could get. Quite frankly, it's a lot of work. I sleep. I think that adrenaline is worn off now. And now I'm like, wow, I am tired. So hence why my reading is not on par today, because I sleep like 3 hours a night maybe, but I wouldn't change it. I love it. And congratulations on having a new one in the family. So how have you had to pivot as a result of this pandemic? And I know a lot of people have, and we talk to business owners, and it's always interesting to see what this has meant for their business. And it's shocking a lot of times to see it actually has improved their business when they decided to pivot.
That is absolutely true. For me, I was fortunate in that when I was taking when I was in the coaching academy and learning how to do coaching, one of the things that they had us do was they said, we want you to start working with, quote, guinea pig clients, right? So we want you to, connect with at least 6 people out there, but you can't use family and you can't use friends. And I'm thinking, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 30 years. I don't know anybody that isn't family or friends. So I just kind of put it out there on Facebook. And because of growing up in a public family, I've always, known that people have reached out to me, and if they read my book or if they saw us sing or had our records or whatever, they reach out to me because they feel like they know me. And even though they're not really my friend because I haven't met them in person, I still accept them as my friend on Facebook. And so I just put it out there on Facebook. And within a couple of days, I had 14 people that had volunteered to be my guinea pig.
Wow.
And so I selected 6 people to start working with. And all of that was not local. It was all done by phone. And so I learned coaching by talking to people on the phone. And then at the time, Skype or FaceTime or whatever, that was just felt very natural to me. So saying to pivot really doesn't feel like it's that much different for me. I was doing it all along. I was doing phone coaching. I was doing Skype, then now Zoom, or just phone calls. And so it's just kind of been a continuation of what I started with, although I have done in-person coaching and continue to, not necessarily in the last several months, but will as people are vaccinated and the shutdown ends and we're able to get back to normal. But so for me, it wasn't so much of a pivot, but what did happen was more and more people started reaching out for help. I think people have felt more depression and more anxiety and have been reaching out for ways to cope. And so I've actually had more clients since the pandemic started reaching out to me than before I had. And I'm not saying that I'm grateful for the pandemic, but I am grateful that people realize that there are places they can go if they need help, if they need to connect with someone who's more than willing to offer, advice, support, suggestions. As a coach, I don't tell people what to do, but I ask questions and I help them shift their perspective. So it's kind of like a kaleidoscope in the sense that you have the same materials that you're working with, but if you look at it a little bit differently, the whole picture changes. And I've had a lot of people that have had those aha moments when we've been working together and they realize, okay, there are some things I can control and I can change, and there's some things I can't. So let's look at the things I can change and control, and let's move them in a more positive direction that makes me feel more fulfilled and purposeful.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting with this, and how people have reacted mentally to this, the mental effect of COVID. It's the fight or flight, and some people have been okay, but it's really exposed a lot of people to themselves because they don't have anything else to hide behind. And it's interesting. There's a great video called The Great Awakening, and it's this guy reading this kid a story about it. And I suggest everybody go check it out because it's this positive take on COVID, and I love it. And it's just about that. So what an awesome thing that you're doing to help people. How would you say that your coaching is different from counseling or therapy, Cherry?
Well, one of the things that I think that makes my experience working with clients different is that I feel perfectly comfortable sharing my own life lessons and the things that I've been through. My life is an open book. You mentioned at the beginning that I did write a book about my struggles with anorexia and bulimia. I was brutally honest about what that experience was like for me. And so I've always felt that it's much more valuable to be vulnerable and open and honest about the struggles that you go through, because first of all, it connects us with other people, with what other people are going through. It makes us feel more human, more like we have those things in common. And if somebody has walked a little further down the road that you're on and has been able to overcome some of the hurdles themselves in their own life, or can tell you what potholes to avoid, then that can be a really valuable thing. And so I think the fact that I can share from my own life makes me different from a therapist or counselor, because that's typically not the kind of thing that a therapist or counselor does. I'm not, just downloading on people all the time about my life. But if something comes up that I feel might be helpful, I'll ask if they, if it's okay with them if I share from my experience. And I let them know too that if they have any questions that they want to ask about me, about my life, my experiences, that I'm more than happy to answer. And like I said, I don't tell people what to do. I don't, give them answers. I mainly ask a lot of questions and try to help them see things in a different light, shift their perspective, and help them just come up with some strategies of how they can accomplish the things that they have set as the goals that they would like to achieve.
I love that. Well, Terry, I hate to say it, we're out of time already. How valuable what you provide to everybody is. As far as coaches, I've had coaches my whole life, and I will never, ever have a coach that hasn't done it themselves, because it's one thing to be on the sidelines cheering people on. It's another thing to be in the game and having people persevere through that. That makes you such a powerful resource for people to help people. So thank you so much, Terry, for being on our show.
Of course. Thank you.